What is up, everybody, and welcome to the Friday FanDuel Strategy video where we're going to break down some of our favorite things that's going to happen tonight. Not necessarily players, but just things. Just go over stuff and just break it. It's early in the morning, so we don't have lineups. There's a lot of wiggle room left yet for lots of stuff to happen. Hell, we even got a COVID scratch the other night and all kinds. So you just never know, but. This is just some strategy stuff we're going over on this particular show today, joined by TJ and John, SquirrelPatrol. You know those guys, grinders out there, man, doing their thing. John specifically grinding out those seats. You still winning seats, man?
Yeah, none for baseball yet, but they still haven't announced like where or when the contest is going to be. So I'm not feeling too much pressure yet. I still think they've got like 90 something still out there, and I missed a couple of weeks when I was abroad. So back at the grind. So
pressure's not on yet. Another month and a half of the pressure will start to mount for you. You'll be like, oh, I gotta get my seat, man. But yeah, TJ, how you doing today? I heard you got some big news today, man.
Yeah, very big news. My website, agentsoffandom.com, we're going to be getting some exclusive interviews for the Amazon show, The Boys. I love that show. It's a lot of fun. It's kind of a very dark take on if superpowered individuals existed in real life and were controlled by the government. So it's a pretty cool show, and doing some interviews for that. I'm excited. One of my closest friends is getting married tonight, so I got that going on as well. So yeah, life's good. I'm excited to start the day talking some baseball and then get all dressed up for the wedding.
Yeah, sounds fun. All right.
Is the wedding after 7:00 or
it's 6:00. So I'm either going to I don't have any duties in the wedding or anything like that. So I'm probably going to just not play tonight, but I'm thinking about putting in a single lineup and maybe just putting in some players in the early games that will have lineups that come out, something like that. But we'll see.
Well, listen, at least it's baseball. It's not basketball, so you'll be all right. So we're just going to talk through some things here real quick for you and see if we can do you any justice here this early in the day. Let's pull up. First off, let's start off with a little weather. Just make sure we're not in any trouble anywhere or there's nothing we can use to our advantage tonight. Doesn't look like it. Doesn't look like Roth has anything particularly bad. Everything should play out in a pretty decent manner without any big delays. So scratch that off the list. Now I want to go to a little weather X, man. This is Roth's proprietary model here where he gives you all kinds of breakdown. I like to sift through and just see if there's anything big. I'm not worried about these ones right here. These, -2%, -4%. I ain't worried about all that. I just like to go through and see if there's anything jumping off the page that maybe we can use to our advantage tonight. And look at that one in Minnesota. So that's a 28-game sample size tonight in Minnesota. I like to think that a lot of times, between Vegas and between our projections, this kind of stuff is baked in. But you never know, man. When it's an anomaly and it's really big number one way or the other, negative or positive, you can. I think you can still use it. I think you can still take advantage of it. So I ask both of you guys. Start off with TJ. When you see the weather model telling you that there should be more offense in Minnesota than there typically is based on this weather, are you doing anything with that, or are you just in the line of it's baked into my stuff, man. It's baked in already. I'm not gonna worry about it.
So to me, it's not the first thing I'm looking at in my projections by any means, but it's very often a tiebreaker for me. It's if I see that I'm torn between two teams, a team's not picking up a bunch of ownership and they're in a good weather spot, that's a chance I want to take it on then. If everyone's going to a certain game because of weather, then that's maybe why I'm going to go off of it a little bit. So to me, it's more of a tiebreaker type of situation as opposed to the main focus of my lineups.
John, does this do anything? Does this move the needle for you at all?
A little bit. I have a pretty similar mindset where if I think it comes down to ownership, right? So like I think if everyone's adjusting for some kind of weather condition, then I maybe want to adjust the opposite way. Like this is something like the Cleveland-Minnesota game really hadn't been on my radar. So if taking a look at this, I find numbers like this tend to be baked in a little bit, but sometimes not baked in enough. So this would maybe make me consider like a Cleveland or Minnesota stack where I wouldn't have necessarily been on those teams or, prior to seeing the weather info.
And for today's slate in particular, it's definitely interesting with Cleveland because this is the team that they got their game postponed because of COVID recently. And so we really have no idea what kind of lineup they're going to be throwing out there today, if that was them impacted, if that was the other team. And it doesn't look like Cleveland's going to be picking much ownership at all today. Minnesota seems like they're going to be getting a bit. Savali isn't a super strong pitcher, but I definitely think if we get still a strong Cleveland lineup here that we can pick on Sonny Gray in this nice weather spot as well.
Yeah, kind of agree with you guys. It's something I'm going to monitor and see if I can take advantage of later on, but I find it interesting, man. Find it interesting. Why not? So we got 13 games on the slate. It's a Friday night. It's a big one. So I'll go, we'll talk about this with everybody, a little round table here. John, is every lineup you make tonight going to be a double stack?
Yeah, absolutely. Every single one. You can only stack 4. And so it just kind of fits in well. You can do 4-4, 4-3. I'll probably do primarily 4-3s because I find the 4-4s tend to be duplicated. But I think almost every single lineup I do. If I do 150 lineups, like if I'm in a 150 lineup contest, like the rally or something like that, 150 lineups are probably going to be at least 4-3 stacks and maybe some 4-4s.
TJ, double stack everything?
Same boat for me. Yeah, most things will be 4-4s. I'll get a few 4-3s, especially if I'm hand building. I typically land on a few more 4-3s just when trying to get a home run hitter that I like in there. And then the odd occasion, if I just have something that lines up beautifully, I don't mind a 4-2-2. If there's just 3 teams I really like, and I'll get my primary stack in there, and then my 2 secondaries, 2 spots in there. But more often than not, probably 80% of my lineups will be 4-4s.
All right, so everybody is on the 4-4 or 4-3-1 train tonight. So stacking 13 games. Just my general thoughts on it. I've said it before, but yeah, I think I'm probably stacked less than everybody else. Just to try to be different sometimes in baseball. I stack a little bit less, but on a 13 gamer, I got to stack away, man. There's just too big of an opportunity there for a stack to win it. So it's not like last night was 3 games. You don't have to stack, I don't think, on a 3 gamer. Although some people will say stack regardless. What would be your opinion, you guys? Both, either one, just jump in there. Your opinion on like last night. Did you have to stack last night?
What were the results of the contest?
If you stack the Yankees, you're pretty happy. But what I would say there is I basically always have a full stack. The smaller the slate, maybe it'll be a 4-2-2. The odds increase of me running like a 4-2-2, a 4-3-1, a 4-1-1-1 if it's a very small slate. But I almost always have a 4 in there, and if I don't, it's a 3-3-2 on a very small slate. But I'm always trying to get at the bare minimum 1 full stack or 2 to 3 mini stacks in there.
And John, you the same way?
Absolutely. Always stacking. The correlation is just so high with runs, RBI, hits, home runs between the same lineup, the lineup turning over. These guys are getting more plate appearances. The correlation with baseball players on a lineup is just so high. I'm always stacking because I'm trying to get that outlier score in a tournament.
Fair enough. All right, let's look at some stacks tonight, maybe, or just I'm gonna sort through the team totals here on Rotogrinders. On the Rotogrinders page. Man, we have a game in Colorado tonight with a couple of not so great pitchers. Let's just say not so great pitchers, and Colorado's getting more than, as of right now, over a half a full run more than anybody else on the slate. In fact, these 2 teams are the biggest, highest projected teams tonight. So I'll start off with TJ. Colorado, Kansas City tonight. What to do with it? Because we know there's going to be ownership. I don't think the numbers are up yet in lineup HQ, but we know there's going to be ownership in Coors Field.
Big time. And so I'm building a lineup as we speak right now, stacking just these two teams together of what we're projecting the lineup to be, just to see how much ownership is left at pitcher, because I really think that'll help us dictate just how owned these players will be today, because there are a ton of high owned pitchers that we're going to want to play. Not high owned, high salary pitchers we're going to want to play today. And so if you can stack these teams with the higher owned pitchers, then they are going to be ridiculously owned today, I think. So looking at it now, I can go Merrifield there. All right, so it looks like you probably have to play about an 8K pitcher, 8 to 9K pitcher if you want to stack these two teams together. So that may make it so that it actually may be different to do a full Coors Field stack with any pitcher other than Eduardo Rodriguez today, because Eduardo Rodriguez looks like the pitcher in the mid-range that's going to be picking up ownership. And so the teams that are stacking these two squads together most likely are going to be with him. So the chalk of the night is going to be Colorado and KC. I think you can still play them because they both are in great spots. You just got to find a bit of a way to get different while you do it. So if you want to play them together, instead of pairing them with Eduardo Rodriguez, maybe you want to pair them with a Logan Webb or a Framber Valdez or a Dane Dunning or a Jordan Lyles, somebody like that.
John, Coors Field, high ownership, but high projected runs. What do we do with it on a slate like tonight?
I'm probably going to try to go under the field. It's going to be tough because I think Kansas City is going to be really popular. Like those prices just aren't that high. And like, especially like Salvador Perez, I think is going to be incredibly highly owned, especially in the smaller field, like higher dollar contests. Like Salvador Perez might see like 30-something% ownership, maybe 40.
Yeah, like I gotta say, like just at this point for like cash games and things like that, he's probably the first batter you're putting into your lineup today.
I think they're facing a lefty. Yeah, Kyle Freeland. I don't know. Yeah, some of those, like the right-handed Kansas City hitter is going to be very popular. And I think like they've got the best chances of breaking the slate, but their ownership is going to be so high, I'm probably going to try to be under the field, like particularly in like the qualifier and stuff like that.
All right, stay with John there. If you're under the field on them, then give me a couple of these next teams that may take their place in your lineup stacks.
I kind of like Arizona. I think they're facing like Drew Smyly, left-hander. So I'll probably target some of the right-handed hitters on Arizona. We'll see what the lineup looks like. Ketel Marte, I think switch hitter, Christian Walker, Jordan Luplow, but he's a pinch hit risk. But he's a lefty masher. So I kind of like Arizona facing Drew Smyly. He just has such a hard time with right-handed hitters. And another team I like is the Yankees. Did well last night. I think they've got some terrifying hitters and a little bit of a slow start to the season, but it seem like they're starting to warm up now. So probably Arizona and the Yankees, maybe from moving away from Coors Field.
TJ, if we're getting away from Coors Field, give me a couple stacks that you might find going under the radar that you can play tonight.
Yeah, the Yankees one I find interesting too because that a pitcher like Vincent Velasquez, who doesn't have a lot of control, that just screams first inning grand slam, especially with how Stanton and Judge have finally been hitting the ball lately. So that's something that I'm interested in as well. And then the other two teams that I don't think are going to pick up as much ownership as they should that I'm interested in are Mike Trout, are the Los Angeles Angels, Mike Trout, Ohtani, and the Angels, as well as Houston. Josiah Gray is a young pitcher with a ton of talent. He has looked great at times this year, a little shaky at other times, but Houston is going to pick up some rostership, but not a ton. And like Yordan Alvarez, 3,800 in the outfield, that is just way too cheap for a guy who's been hitting the ball with the kind of power that he has this year. So I talked about Sal Perez as being one of arguably the top hitter on the slate. I think Yordan Alvarez is right in there in the conversation with him.
Yeah. All right. Let's. So within our stacks, then I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look at it. It's really early, and we don't have any confirmed lineups out yet. But we can dart around anywhere. But let's just start off in Kansas City, Colorado. Does anybody stand out to you like this group of players is the guys I want to stack the most? Like I don't know if we think who we think is going to gather the most ownership. You guys said Salvador Perez. So would that be a guy that we avoid in our Coors Field stacks, or is there any groups of guys that you're looking at like, man, I want the 3, 5, 6, whatever it might be? John, I'll start with you. Any groups out there that jump off the page? And it doesn't even have to be Coors Field. It could be whatever lineup you want to stack.
Yeah, I mean, just thinking about Kansas City, I think it's going to be the right-handed hitters. I think if Whit Merrifield's leading off, then I think it's going to be Merrifield, Perez, like Dozier, and Bobby Witt. Probably going to be 4 of the most top popular players on the slate. Any team, though, I'm going to be targeting the middle of the order. I'll probably aim to be way under the field on Kansas City. If you think about it, there's 26 teams, I think, playing tonight. Kansas City stack might be 20% owned. Like that's probably 4 times, 3 or 4 times what it should be. So you think about that before you put in your Kansas City stack. Even though like all of those hitters are going to look so good, it's going to be tough to avoid them. I might end up using Salvi Perez as a one-off with other stacks, so that if he does hit 2 home runs, I think he's got the best home run prop today. And if he does hit 2 home runs, then my lineups aren't completely sunk. But maybe he's the guy you need out of the Kansas City Royals, and then some other team ends up scoring the most runs on the slate, and then you've got a winning lineup right there.
TJ, groups within our stacks. Anybody in Coors Field to jump out to? And I want to ask you this first question. Salvador Perez on the Kansas City side. Now we're only focused on FanDuel because this is a FanDuel show, so we're only focused on FanDuel's catchers. Already tend to go under-owned on FanDuel because you don't have to play one. So could that lead to lower ownership on Perez? And if so, are you going to try to take advantage of that, or do you still think he's going to be high? And who's your stacks in court? Like what groups are we looking at here that you're thinking right off the cuff here in the morning time look like they could be really nice to play together?
Yeah, so if Salvador Perez isn't a top 5 rostered player on the slate today, I'm going to be ridiculously overweight on him. And I agree with that if KC's picking up a lot of rostership, then Salvador Perez is probably the one guy I'm holding on to, and I'm going to try and get underweight on the rest. If I do want to stack them anyway, the guy I always have interested in for a sneaky stack in Kansas City is Michael Taylor, just because he's got the speed to go along with it. And anytime KC goes off, he just seems to, maybe this is my head and not the data to go with it, but I always feel like he has a part in that. And he's a player that no one wants to play. People would always rather play someone like Merrifield, but he's pretty darn close to the same type of hitter as Merrifield. And so I have interested in him if I'm getting in a stack there. He's like one of the cheapest people on the team, and nobody really likes playing him. On the Colorado side, if I can, I'm probably going to try and get more of this middle of the order. I definitely like getting Crone and Ryan McMahon in my stacks as opposed to focusing on the top of that lineup there. Maybe I'll have the top in as well, but Crone and McMahon are the 2 that I'm making sure I absolutely get in my Colorado stacks. And they'd also be the 2 I'd be most likely to one off. One of the reasons my favorite tournament stack, I think, on the slate is the Angels is there's no one that has more upside than Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani ever on a slate, given for back-to-back batters. And then when you add Anthony Rendon, who's starting to hit the ball better, Brandon Marsh, who's having a great year, Taylor Ward, if he's back playing and in the lineup, they finally have some good hitters surrounding Ohtani and Trout, and so they can't just pitch around them. Of course, Jared Walsh as well. So the Angels are a stack I love playing anytime they're not picking up a ton of rostership, but now they're also facing a pitcher who isn't that good either. So yes, it's not a good ballpark, but the Angels have a ton of upside. Not many people are going to be playing them. So that's the high upside stack that I like the best for tournaments today.
Fair enough. So, all this talk about stacking, and John, you said correlation. So start off with John with a question. What positions in the lineup, when you're going in the lineup HQ and you're trying to stack, are you like saying, I don't want any number 9 hitters, number 8 hitters in my stack? What are you focused? Are you focused on anything specifically within your stack?
I do pay attention to the guys that I'm playing, like 2 spread out. Well, with only 4 guys, and if I'm playing 4 guys from the same stack, like they can't get too far away from each other in the order, right? If I'm doing a 3-man stack, they actually can. So I pay some attention to that. If I'm doing a 3-man stack, I don't necessarily want like the 1, the 5, and the 7 or something like that. So I do, and just the way that projections work, though. I mean, the guys that are generally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are going to be the highest projected players in the stack. Although for the huge contest, right, like the rally, like where I'm trying to beat 30,000 people, I do drop down to like the 7, 8, and 9 guys. And sometimes that gets you a little bit different because those guys tend to be almost always see single digit ownership. Sometimes at 1%. I think was it last night we had a 4-game slate. Who was it? Lurie Garcia. It was like the 8 or 9 hitter for the White Sox. I think hit a grand slam or had a big game. And that makes a huge difference, like in those contests like the rally.
TJ, similar question. Are you do you find when you're doing your settings for 100 lineups, do you need it? Do you need your hitters to be hitting back to back in your stack, or are you going to spread them out, or do you go in and say, you know what, kill the number 9 hitter in all my stacks? I don't need the number 9 hitter. I don't need the number 8 hitter. How would you do that on a 13-game slate?
Yeah, I definitely don't exit. Like, I definitely don't X out specific lineup positions of hitters. Like, I think it was 2 years ago that if you were playing a ton of Gleyber Torres at the 9 spot, you were making a lot of money in MLB DFS. And so it's the same thing this year. Like, one of my favorite plays on any given slate when the Dodgers aren't picking up a ton of ownership, or when they are because the back of the lineup never does, is Gavin Lux. And that's a 9 hitter that I frequently love going to. So when it's like Squirrel said, when I'm 4-man stacking, I typically don't worry about where they are. But if it's a 3-man and especially a 2-man, that's when I'm really concerned. Like, I'm probably not going to try and do a 2-hitter and a 7-hitter together in a lineup. I try and get those a little closer together when it's only a 2-man.
Fair enough. All right, let's go back to the team page here and question. We'll start off with TJ here for you. We've talked about some of these stacks we want to put in there, but are there any secondary stacks in here? Like you talk about a 2-man, like are you separating them? These are the teams I just want to fully stack. These are the teams I want to just go 2-man or 3-man at the most, or are they just all one big jumbled pool to you?
They're usually all one big jumbled pool, but if we go to the stack section in Lineup HQ, then what I will typically do is I'll bump the secondary stacks of teams that I only like a couple hitters in. So a good example of a team that I would often do that with would be somebody like Seattle, where I often really, just not tonight because they're facing Max Scherzer, but maybe I really want to play Eugenio Suarez as well as Jesse Winker. Don't really want to get to anybody else, so maybe I'm gonna lower that number of 4-man stacks I want to get with them and bump the number of secondary stacks. But usually it's a jumbled pool, and then when I'm looking through my lineups, I'll kind of adjust a few things by hand. For today, I think a perfect example of a team to look at for a mini stack is the Angels. Like, if you don't want to have to stack the whole thing, you want to get cheaper somewhere else so you can still pay up at pitching, but you want to mini stack Trout and Ohtani, there's no better mini stack you can do in baseball than Trout and Ohtani.
Yeah. Squirrel.
And
go for it.
Another interesting one based on like another stack that Squirrel mentioned earlier with the Yankees. Like, if you don't want to dive fully into the Yankees today, you can just run Judge and Stanton, or Gleyber Torres has finally been hitting the ball a little bit better and he's getting good lineup spots and he's cheap. You can run Stanton, Torres, that type of thing. That's another good mini stack team tonight, I think.
John, you got kind of building off of what he says. Is there any teams out there, that maybe because of ownership or whatever the reason, or matchup? Of course, we don't want to play too many bad matchups, but is there anybody out there that you just won't stack it all? But man, yeah, I do want a one-off from this team. I do want to take just one guy from any good one-offs out there that you'll X out of stacking, but you do want a player or two or a player from that team.
So Kansas City, I mean, that's actually, I kind of mentioned it earlier. Okay. Like I think the Kansas City stack might be too highly owned, but they have a bunch of players who could hit. Well, not a bunch, but like they have 1 or 2 players who could really break the slate. So like Salvi Perez is a guy that like maybe I do know Royals lineups, but I keep like Salvi Perez or maybe Bobby Witt Jr. in my player pool in case they break the slate. And it's interesting because context is everything. Like the Angels are an interesting example because they're a team that sometimes, even if they've got a pretty good run total, I don't necessarily want to stack them because like Shohei Ohtani might not be eligible in the player pools if he's pitching. So they might look like an appealing stack on paper, but actually you can't really get Ohtani in there. So you don't necessarily want to stack. So it does depend on the context of the slate.
Fair enough. All right. We're going to wrap this thing up here pretty quickly. And we're just going to go around the horn a couple times here. What you got?
Couple of one-offs I just want to touch on. Like, it's a big slate, so there are going to be some great plays that are very low owned. For example, the Mets aren't a stack that I really want to get to heavily today. However, Pete Alonso not going to be very rostered, in a great spot against the lefty. Fantastic one-off. Vlad Guerrero isn't setting up in a good spot, but it's still Vlad Guerrero not going to be owned whatsoever. And he's one of the best hitters in baseball. So there are a lot of spots like this on a big slate that we talked earlier on about how Squirrel likes going 4-3. I too like going 4-3 on occasion, because there are going to be players like this that I like. Sal Perez, a high owned one-off with some of my lower owned stacks. But in my higher owned stacks, guys like Pete Alonso, the Vlad Guerreros, no one's going to be playing them today, but they have just as high of upside as anyone else on the slate.
All right. Round the horn. Start off with TJ. You don't even have to explain yourself. Just give me 3 great stacks you like tonight.
3 great stacks I like tonight: Houston, the Angels, and San Fran.
Squirrel, 3 stacks you like tonight.
Arizona, Yankees, and I'm going to go with the weather game, Minnesota.
I'd go Houston, Yankees, and Minnesota. I dig that weather. And then we'll wrap it up here. We'll each pick two starting pitchers that you feel pretty good about. We'll start off with John on this one. 2 starting pitchers you'll find in a lot of your lineups tonight.
So Max Scherzer is kind of the obvious guy, but I think I'm probably going to be at the field or over because I think he's got the highest strikeout potential tonight. Then a little bit of an off-the-radar guy trying to fit in some higher-priced hitters, Nick Pivetta with Boston.
TJ, two pitchers.
Yeah, the top end 2 that I would like the best for considering cash games would be Max Scherzer and Kevin Gausman. But for tournaments, the guys I like best, same for fitting in some of those high-priced bats, would be Logan Webb, Dane Dunning, and close my eyes and hope for the best, Jordan Lyles.
Ooh, I'm going Clayton Kershaw, high strikeout Philly team. And I think Framber Valdez, I like the matchup. I think he's dialing up a few more Ks these days, so I don't mind that. Guys, it's going to wrap it up here for a little FanDuel strategy session. So we appreciate TJ and John getting on here with us on a Friday morning. This show will be back next Friday with some more information for you. Until then, guys, good luck in those GPPs. I was host Chop, and we're out of here.